The basketball show. It's the basketball show after Auburn's win at South Carolina, 66-63. Before we get to the major news in this game, you just got to start off, Taylor Corn, with the fact that Auburn, without the best player in the country for most of the second half, was able to hold on, fight, scratch, and end up winning and continuing their 8-game win streak, going 3-0 in the SEC with a 66-63 win over South Carolina. Not the kind of game I thought it would be, even when Janai was in the game, but a win is a win. We'll talk about Broome in a second. Gutsy effort from your Auburn Tigers.
Wow. 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 I was not expecting the game to go like that. Like you said, I don't think anyone was. And Auburn just got off to a bad start. They did not look good in the first half, and Janai Broome in the second half being out, and then Dylan Cardwell being in foul trouble. Not ideal by any means, but they walked away with a win. And like you said, a win's a win's a win. SEC play is going to be a long couple weeks. It's going to be a gauntlet. No win's going to be an easy win. And I'm glad that they pulled it off.
I don't think we'll hear anything on Janai Broome until at least tomorrow. Bruce is talking now on the SEC network. I'll follow on Twitter here to see what he says there. But it was an ankle injury. He landed on the foot, coming down with the rebound of a teammate. I think was it Chaney he landed on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, landed on his foot. Those things happen in basketball. The ankle is probably the most at-risk thing in the game of basketball. And you're coming down and you just assume the floor is going to be there, not somebody else's feet. And you land on it, and there's really nothing the human ankle can do, and he goes down instantly. You could tell he was in a lot of pain. He's helped off the floor, not putting any weight on it. He does not come back. I actually sent out word, Marlene Naver and the crew, with about 7 minutes left, that he would not be returning in the contest. But that's no indication of what's next for Janai Broome. We'll wait and get official word on that. But when you look at this game in particular, when Broome went down, 13:45 to go in the game, South Carolina was up 47-45. That was probably the first time I thought to myself, they could lose this game. How are these guys going to react with their best player, the best player in college basketball, back in the locker room? Because to me, Taylor, human nature, I start thinking not just about this game. I start thinking about all our games. Now, maybe I'm mentally
Right.
weak. You were a great athlete. I was not. I'm a bench warmer. You were a star. But for me, I instantly go worst case scenario. I'd be out there playing defense thinking about, man, if Janai can't come back, what's the whole season going to be like now? I give them credit for continuing to fight today.
Yeah, I agree. And it's similar. I mean, not the exact same situation because the opponent's obviously a lot more competitive than Georgia State was. But when he went down in that Georgia State game, things looked very sloppy for a hot second, and then they pulled it together. This was a more competitive opponent. Things were going to be more challenging, on top of the fact that they already weren't playing well to start the game. And Janai wasn't playing well in the first half either. But props to the young guys. I mean, Tahad hit a couple big time shots, but shots just weren't falling. Shots weren't falling. They weren't playing as well on defense as they typically do. And I also had thoughts towards the end of the second half that this could be ugly. Not ugly as in point differential, but ugly as in you enter the game as a 17-point favorite and there's an upset.
With our friends at mybookie.ag promo code next round, I wake up this morning and I notice that it's 16.5 is all Auburn is favorite. And I'm thinking to myself, South Carolina is without 2 starters. And Alabama just beat them by 20. And one of the guys that's out for South Carolina is the guy who handles the ball for him on the point. I thought to myself, you wake up today, you look at that at mybookie.ag promo code next round, and you go, that is easy money. But they always know something I don't know, man. 66-63. And to your point, even when Janai Broome was healthy in the first half, 2 of 8, 4 points, 3 different rebounds, and their big star, South Carolina, who only had 6 against Alabama. Colin Murray Boyles, was 7 of 10, hit 4 free throws, had 5 rebounds, and a total of 18 points in the first half. And a lot of that with Janai or Dylan on him. I was surprised at even how the first half went, and I'd love your opinion. Auburn wasn't running. I look at the fast break points in the first half. Four fast break points is all Auburn had. South Carolina had zero. It seemed like Auburn was playing South Carolina's game even when everybody was healthy in the first half. What did you think?
Yeah, they just didn't look like themselves. They weren't playing their style of basketball. I thought rebounding was a massive issue in the first half. And I don't know what it was just one of those games that was ugly. You know, you can't really put your finger on what the issue was. But things just, I don't want to say weren't falling their way, but shots weren't falling. South Carolina was making some incredible shots. And they really did not look like themselves, which is surprising to me because after how close the game got at Texas earlier this week, I figured that would be a little bit of a reality check and they would come out guns a-blazing. And that's not what happened. But like we've talked about earlier, you know, this conference season, it's meaningful to walk away from this type of game with a win because I think in the future, moving forward, it will give this team confidence. If they're down, you know, they have it in them to be able to come back and walk away with a win, you know, when things are tough. And right now, Broome's out. For how long? Who knows? But it didn't look great. I mean, when they showed the replay, I didn't catch it when it happened, you know, in the live action. But once they showed the replay, it didn't look great. And an ankle sprain is something that can be a lingering issue. So who knows what the future will look like for Janai Broome, but they really didn't look like themselves tonight. One thing that stood out to me in the end of the game though was Tahad. We've talked about him and his ability to step up when the lights are bright. Houston, I mean, he played an incredible game at Houston, and the free throws that he hit at the end of the game, that is pressure. You have so much pressure and you have so much weight on your shoulders. And the fact that a freshman was able to hit those shots when the game's on the line, that is something that stood out to me in terms of positive takeaways. But I mean, the game was ugly. The game was very ugly.
I will read you what Chad Pruitt, Auburn's longtime assistant, has tweeted from the locker room. You get ready to go to the comments area. We always appreciate your comments. In fact, the only reason we do these post game shows is for you guys to comment after games. Chad Pruitt tweets, "Found a way, road win, War Eagle," with four exclamation points. In the end, finding a way to win is all that matters there in that contest. We'll wait and hear Janai Broome's future. Um, immediate or long term, whatever that ankle injury. Remember, as you pointed out, Georgia State, he left the game very early, but never missed a start. He played with pain, with a brace in the very next game against Purdue, and has been in the lineup ever since. So never count Janai Broome out. Let's go to the comments there. This is the basketball show live version when we go live after Auburn and after Alabama, which means we'll be doing it again tonight, late night at just around 9 o'clock or just after Alabama's road game at Texas A&M. Interesting note in that one, it is the first top 10 game in the history of College Station. They've never had two top 10 teams on the same floor at the same time in the history of basketball in College Station. It'll happen tonight with Alabama and Texas A&M. And surprisingly to me, when I woke up, because when we did the basketball show taped version on Thursday night, Friday morning, I thought Alabama would be the underdog in that one. They open up a favorite because A&M is without their top scorer. We'll talk about that tonight after their game. What are the Auburn folks saying about the close win at South Carolina, 66-63?
This is a very interesting comment to me, something that I hadn't thought about. But Land My Believer said, I think Broome getting hurt won them the game. He was getting worked by Pringle and Boyles. And I don't want to say that won them the game, but like we said, he was not playing well in the first half. And you cannot expect any player on any team to have a record-breaking game every time they step on the court because it is such a long season, and that's just not realistic. But he was shockingly, he was missing layups that he typically wouldn't, and he wasn't playing good defense. And that's something that the team has been praised about this whole season is how well they play defense, and that just was not the case tonight.
I will tell you that when I never played. I played a little. I was on a college baseball team at Montevallo, but I never got to play. But there were certain games we would go into, but especially in high school when I played, that we were just supposed to beat Pelham, our big rival. They weren't good. We were just supposed to win that game. And we were supposed to beat Pell City. They just weren't that good, right? And we were never supposed to beat Vestavia or Hoover. So when we played Vestavia and Hoover, we played our best baseball. When we played Pelham and when we played Pell City, we were as sloppy as heck. We'd win the game, but we were sloppy as heck. And I just wonder, you played at an elite level in high school at soccer, and these guys are the best of the best. I just wonder, because I, as a sportscaster, looked at this game, and there's no way South Carolina could play close with Auburn. You look at this game on paper, and you look at just at the Alabama South Carolina game on the same floor the other night, it just doesn't add up that it's going to be close. And I just wonder how much of that creeps into your mind mentally, because I know my small brain, it did when I played. It just sometimes you're not as sharp. I don't think you can be as sharp as you possibly can be for 40 games if you end up making it to the Final Four. You're going to have mental games like this, and Auburn was having one of those. So to Landmine Believer's point, I think he may be right, because what wakes you up more than the best player in college basketball going down with an injury, and you're saying, "Oh shit," excuse my language, but you say, "Oh shit, we better get our act together, or we're going to take the L here in Columbia. This isn't as easy as we thought it was going to be at an 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock body clock game. All of a sudden, we better get up and start playing." And I thought a lot of people stepped up after he left the floor. Now, long term, you want Janai Broome back as quick as you can get him back, so your ultimate goal can be hit. But I understand what he's saying there, that may have been the cold water wake up moment that this team needed.
3-1 Troy, time for Bruce to just let Tahad take over. And there was a comment, an H3425, that was epic free throws by Tahad. I do think that he's extremely talented. He's elite, he's young, and he's shown up in big games when Auburn needed him. But defensively, I think is the concern for Tahad. I think he's fine coming off the bench. I think he's accepted his role, as have a lot of the guys on this roster. But I think defensively is where he struggles. And Bruce has talked about it in a number of press conferences that he's improved and he wants to improve. He wants to be coached hard, but I do think that that's a concern.
When he hit the 3-pointer with 9:30 left, it was such a big bucket at that moment of the game because Auburn was behind, and it put Auburn up 55-53. And Auburn in the final half of the half, it was 9:30 when they went up 55-53. Auburn would only score 11 more points in the game. So that's how big that shot was. Miles had one to tie it from NBA depth late in the game to make it 59-59. The free throws were big. Those 2 3-pointers were huge as well, because there just wasn't a lot of points scored in this game. It just was not a lot of points scored. So but I don't understand what he means. Just let Pettiford take over now. I don't get that comment. What do you think he means by that?
I don't know if that means more playing time, more minutes on the court, if it means him starting, which we talked about when we were talking about Alabama on Thursday, is starting isn't necessarily, that's not the end all be all. It could be he fits in with the second rotation better. Um, but the thing is there are other guys that have had control of this team, had control of the offense, and been very efficient. Denver Jones, I mean, he's been incredible this season so far. No one had a phenomenal game tonight, but I'm guessing he means more minutes. Just let him run the offense when he's out there. But I don't think he's to that point defensively yet. He had, let's see. Oh, he didn't foul at all tonight, but he has had some issues fouling in the past. So I think that that's kind of a work in progress. But he's young, and there's a big transition between high school and SEC basketball. So I think that he's probably just going to need some more time to develop on the defensive side of the ball. Shooting has not been an issue for him at all. JJ Jets World, Auburn is not the same team without Broome. I mean, I don't think anyone's really the same team if their star player goes out. That's just that's the way the cookie crumbles. If the guy that your team is molded, shaped, revolved around goes down with an injury, no team's going to be the same.
Yeah, I would agree. You find more comments. Bruce Pearl at the podium and post game from all the media there. He is calling Broome's injury a significant sprain, a significant sprain. Now you read into that what you want to read into that. Um, I've seen significant sprain used in the past. Tua Tagovailoa had one before the 2019 LSU football game. Missed a game and then had the tightrope surgery, had a bye week, and then was back for the LSU game. But was not really 100% until he got injured at Mississippi State, and that ended his career. But I don't think the ankle sprain was the reason why he ended up getting sacked and severely injured at that point. But it's being called significant. And I was just thinking in my head, no, I don't have any notes in front of me of in my career when I've heard significant ankle injury. I do remember that being used in that Tua Tagovailoa situation, and that ended up having that tightrope surgery. And I think we forget that sprains sometimes are actually little fractures at a certain part just above the ankle. The high ankle sprain is a fracture that sort of splinters like that. And then when they tightrope it, they drill little holes in it and pull that bone together and then tie the knot to hold it into place. Very, very sore. And then you work your way back from that and then you try to play through that. And I don't know if that's what they'll end up doing with Janai or not, tightrope surgery, or if there's ligament damage or anything like that. But right now, all Bruce is telling us is a significant sprain in the ankle of Janai Broome, who was by far the betting favorite to be the National Player of the Year, something we talked about earlier this week on the next round, and you sent it out on the social platform. I think the betting odds were 1-3, way ahead of Cooper Flag and everyone else, that he was the best player in college basketball. What else do we have in the chat room over there? And I'd love for your thoughts on just what this team looks like without Broome if he misses a game or two.
Well, something that was a large disadvantage today after Janai went down is the fact that Dylan Cardwell was in foul trouble. So then you have Jaheim Hudson playing. He hasn't played many minutes this season. And I mean, I think obviously the team changes if Janai Broome's out, but they haven't prepared for that situation. It's not like they've been practicing all off season and up through the 15 games that they've played so far. When they're game planning and prepping, it's expected that he's going to be out there because he has been healthy other than when he tweaked his shoulder earlier this season. So I think if it's decided that he's going to sit, for however long that he's going to sit, they're not going to be the same team. But I think that having the time to prepare leading up to a game for him not being there, getting guys extra minutes like Jaheim Hudson, who took over when Dylan was in foul trouble, I don't know that it will look as sloppy as it had the 2 games that he's gone down unexpectedly, just because it's not like they've been, preparing and practicing for that situation all season long. Will they be as dominant? No. I mean, like you said, he's the betting favorite for National Player of the Year. He's arguably the best player in college basketball right now. So no, it's not going to be the same. But I do think if they're able to have time to prepare for him being off the court, that will look a little different than it has when he, went down in the Georgia State game and went down tonight. Tonight was also, they weren't playing well before he went down. So it was just an off night for the team in general.
This is where basketball gets it right. I think basketball is able to get it right because they play more games. But basketball's committee, honest to goodness, takes into consideration in your seeding when you play games without a star player. So if Janai Broome misses a game, 2 games, 4 games, Auburn's going to be judged on what they have done already and what they would be with Janai Broome when he comes back when we get to Selection Sunday, which is still months away. So still a long time to go. But this team is not in jeopardy of slipping out of the conversation for a very good seed in the NCAA tournament, no matter what Broome's prognosis is. They have done the work with 7 quad one wins. They're 15-1. They've got an 8-game win streak. And the committee in basketball does a much better job than they do in football of taking in players when they miss time and when they come back, because they really judge when they seed the NCAA tournament by who you have on the court when you're playing in the NCAA tournament. So if Broome comes back, then Auburn will be judged as a team that has Janai Broome and what they were before his injury. So I don't, we'll find out if he comes back. You want him back. You want him to be as healthy as he possibly can when he comes back. So if you miss 4 weeks and you take some losses along the way, that's not the worst case scenario, in my opinion. Get Janai Broome back, get him as healthy as you possibly can. And when you get to the NCAA tournament, you'll be rewarded for what you did with Janai Broome, not penalized totally for what you did without Janai Broome. And then you'll go into the tournament as the team you were with Janai Broome. You may not be the number 1 overall seed, which Auburn would have been if the tournament started today. And they may still be. I'm not saying the other guys can't keep it going. I'm just saying basketball gets it right. Let's get Janai Broome as healthy as you possibly can. There is no need to rush him back on the basketball court.
Well, and I think Auburn, along with every other SEC team, they're going to drop games no matter what. No one's going to walk out of conference play unscathed. And would they lose games without him that they probably would have won with him? Maybe. And I'm also responding, Lamb Believer said Auburn will lose a couple road games, but they will still win all home games and be a 2 or 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. I mean, they're going to, whether Janai Broome's out for, 4 weeks or not, they're not going to walk away from conference play undefeated. That's unrealistic, and I don't think that any team will. I mean, there's only 5 teams left. There will be 4 after tonight because 2 of the undefeated teams remaining in conference play are teams that play later this afternoon in Alabama and Texas A&M. So there will be 4 after tonight at least. And I think that everyone's going to drop a few. Will they be unexpected losses? Maybe. I mean, no one can predict that, but I think that's expected, or it should be. If you're thinking realistically.
Keep in mind, Taylor, it was 13:45 when Broome went down today, and South Carolina was leading 47-45 when Janai went down today. So there was no guarantee with Janai in the game that it was not going to end up 66-63 anyway. You know what I mean? The way Janai was playing, he wasn't having his best day. It just wasn't Auburn's day. And to your point, that may end up being the team's rally. People step up and Auburn keeps winning. Or you may get Janai back very quickly and you lose games that you were going to lose anyway. South Carolina's 0-3 in the SEC. They're not one of the better teams in the league. Colin Murray Boyles is. You got to stop him. Nick Pringle had a good day, the former Alabama star. But other than that, South Carolina is not going to be what Auburn's going to face down the road, including that next home game against a monstrous Mississippi State team.
My SEC sleeper.
Your SEC sleeper, Mississippi State. All right, a few more comments, and we'll start winding it down here. This is the Auburn postgame, the basketball show, brought to you by our friends at Roback.com. TNR20 is the promo code. Get you 20% off all of our gear there. Roback.com. It's got great, fantastic Auburn activewear there. Little T has a hoodie with an Auburn logo, bright orange. A great one as well for Forrester with the old school Tiger logo. Go check that stuff out right there at Roback.com. Promo code TNR20, and always by our friends at mybookie.ag. Promo code next round. Anything else, T, before we wind it down?
Something that Forrester said that brought up another thought that I had. He said from the point where Miles Kelly hit the 3 to put Auburn up 9-11 until the end of the game, that was one of the more unenjoyable things I've watched in recent memory. And I completely agree, but I think that Miles Kelly needs to be talked about. He was also hitting big shots when Auburn seemed to be in a little bit of a rut or a dry spell. He came up clutch a few times this game.
He did. He had a 3-pointer to make it 59-59 at the 2:18 point. He made a big pass inside that led to a bucket. I thought he was a clutch player. He's I told you when we did it on our show, our podcast, that he was my overachieving player so far through that point of the season, through the non-conference. I like what Miles Kelly brings to the game, and I think his outside shot will help Auburn down the stretch here.
Josh Carter, Auburn lost the SEC today. I don't know if that means the SEC regular season. He's expecting that this will snowball into them losing the regular season title.
Well, right now they're 3-0. You can't predict the future, and we'll need to know more about Janai Broome. A significant ankle injury, according to Bruce Pearl. Janai will have access to social media. Maybe he'll post something on the plane on the way back to Auburn, and maybe we'll get an update straight from the horse's mouth.
Timmons said, "What was the injury?" Can you just repeat what you said a little bit earlier in the show about what Bruce Pearl said post game?
Yeah. Left ankle injury. If you weren't watching, he was fighting for a rebound and came down on teammate Chaney Johnson's foot as he was landing. And as you come down on somebody's foot, you naturally get this turn right here, which he did. No matter how strong your ankle is, you can only do so much in that joint area. And he crumbles to the ground, instantly grabbing his left ankle, ends up getting helped off the court by Auburn medical personnel training staff, taken straight back to the locker room. That was at 13:45 in the game. And around 7 minutes in the game, Marlene Neighbor and the Auburn Public Relations Department sent word to the broadcast crews that Janai would not be returning back to the game. In the post game, Bruce Pearl called it a significant ankle injury, and that's all he would say. No timetable yet. What you will do is you'll get him back to Auburn. You'll do an MRI. You will check for any ligament damage. Ligament damage is where it becomes, in my years of covering sports, ligament damage is where it becomes a bigger problem. A ligament tear or something like that is actually worse than a high ankle sprain, which is actually a little fracture. But with the advancement of the tightrope surgery and other treatments, you can come back from a high ankle sprain faster than you can a complete ligament tear. You can have ligament strains and things like that that could get you back into the lineup faster as well. So you don't want ligament damage, high ankle sprains, that kind of stuff. You may miss some time, but you'll be back for this year. All we can do is hope and pray that he ends up being okay and is back on the basketball court this year. But it is a significant left ankle injury for Janai Broome.
One thing, I think we're about done with the comments, but one other thing in regard to Janai that I think that will probably be taken into consideration is the fact that you don't want to put him back out there prematurely if you're concerned about the way your team has looked without him, assuming that he's expected to miss an extended period of time. Because the way that you work mentally, it's kind of a mental block, with an ankle. And I kind of thought that this might be a concern with his shoulder, but it hasn't appeared to be. There's a little bit of a mental block because you think about that, when you're jumping, you're thinking, okay, last time I did this, I landed on Chaney Johnson's foot and rolled my ankle. So I feel like there could be a little bit of hesitation, a little bit of overthinking, or just mental worry when he comes back if his ankle is still feeling a little bit tweaked. But losing a couple games is not going to be the end of the world in conference play. So I agree with what you're saying in terms of they need to let him get 100% fully healthy before he returns to the court. Don't press it just to get him back,
Yeah.
to try and.
We see it with running backs. You have a right knee injury, and the first time you try to cut to the right, you plant that foot to the right, and you cut. You're wondering, is it going to hold up? It's not going to hold up, right? And you have to
Right.
worry about that. And it's amazing. It's amazing that you play as much basketball as these guys do, and you don't see that injury more often because I don't know if you've ever been around real basketball players playing with people like me. They don't like to play with people like me because I'm competitive and I like to guard you defensively, but I am not a good enough basketball player or a good enough athlete not to guard you defensively and not to be out of your way when you shoot and you're landing. Good basketball players know how to defend you, but also not to be underneath you as the person you're guarding is landing. so you don't injure that person. You go to any YMCA in America or any asphalt top in America and watch really good basketball players. They don't like to play with average Joes like me because I don't know how to keep my ankles, my feet out from underneath them when they're jumping and playing at a high level. Not Cheney's fault today. It just happens in basketball, but it doesn't happen as often at that level because they're such great athletes. All right, that's our show. We'll be back tonight post game after Alabama, Texas A&M, the first ever top 10 matchup in College Station, where Alabama is a slight road favorite, surprising there. But A&M right now, without their top leading scorer going into that game, we'll be back for a short comment show after that. And then again, Monday morning, we will drop another taped edition of the basketball show to get you ready for another week of great SEC basketball. She's Taylor Korn. I'm Jim Dunaway, and we'll see you later tonight.
See y'all.